Guys, welcome back to releasethecraftin. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft. And not just any episode of Storycraft. This is the first Storycraft of the year. It's also the Storycrafts of last year because those of you who saw my little update video, my little closeout for the end of the year, will know that I have been sick and recovering. And then I got sick again, so I had to recover again, which is why there was a bit of delay getting this series back up. But I am currently still doing the Spirits of the Season because I had 3 videos planned, 3 videos recorded, and I wanted to finish those and get those out there. So that's what we're going to wrap up January with, is the rest of the Spirits of the Season. So they are going to be a winter Yule themed. But it's still winter, so I think it's okay. We're literally in the middle of it, the thick of winter right now. So it's still an excellent time to go over the Spirits of the Season. And I have for you today, a very interesting one, another spooky one, because I mean, it wouldn't be about spirits if it wasn't a little bit spooky, right? And I'm going to apologize way in advance. This one's from Iceland, guys, and I don't know if you've ever heard me say anything Icelandic. You haven't, because it's butchered. It's butchered horribly, so I'm apologizing up front for all of the butchering of the Icelandic language I'm about to do now. Granted, I am looking at mostly translated stuff because I don't even want to attempt it, to be honest. So I'm going to avoid saying the Icelandic words or names where I can and going for their translations, because it's going to be really rough if I do the direct translations for that, or the original words for that. That's what I mean. Words are really hard, guys, and it's been a little bit since I've done a voiceover, especially a Storycraft voiceover, so I hope that you guys are prepared for this, and are looking forward to having Storycraft back. I don't know if I'm going to do another theme after this. I thought about doing another, love theme one for February, but I might just roll into whatever story I want to tell, and get a little break from the themed ones. But I am excited to finish Spirits of the Season, so let's jump into it, because today we're talking about Gryla and the Yule lads. And we're also talking about the Yule cat. I'm going to talk about all 3 of them today. You'll see why, as I go along, but let's just jump into it. So essentially, Gryla is an ogress coming to us from Icelandic legend who first appeared in the 13th century. So forever ago. She was in texts such as the Icelandinga saga and the Severus saga, and that's my best attempt. But she wasn't traditionally connected with the Christmas or Yule season until later on. She was just sort of a winter spirit. So around the 17th-ish century is when she makes her sort of Christmas connection. And Gryla, like the Yule lads, doesn't just appear at Christmas time. She traditionally appears either in the 12 days leading up to Christmas or the 12 days after Christmas, depending on your source, because I found sources that said both and I couldn't distinguish which one, so we're doing both. I've also seen sources that state that she shows up the entirety of sort of the winter Yule month, not the entirety of winter, but the whole month leading into Yule. So essentially, there's some debate on where her origins are. Either she's been a ogress the entire time, or she was maybe something kind of human related, like a human, who lived in a village and then got rejected, and the rejection turned her into an ogress, and all of her heinous acts. There's a lot of debate where that is. But originally they thought about her as a beggar. So she would go around the village and just ask parents to give her their disobedient kids, essentially because she wanted to eat them. That's right. She would go around and be like, hey, your kid sucks. Can I have it? And the parents would be like, what? No, you can't just have my kid. And she's like, I promise I won't return him. And they were like, ugh, awful. We don't like that idea. So to get her to go away, they would throw food at her and she would leave. Which, not gonna lie, that would work for me too. But I don't really fancy a meal of kid stew. I think kids are tough and not fun to eat. But that's what she would do. So she would go around and start to beg and ask people for their disobedient children only. She had a particular taste for disobedient children. And eventually they chased her away from the village, and she had to go live off in the woods or in a cave or wherever they chased her to. Now it's sort of more commonly accepted that Gryla is an ogress who knows whether your kids are little shits the whole year. She doesn't need to be told. You don't have to let her know. She is always watching, like Santa. She knows if your kids have been naughty or nice. And if they are naughty, she will come to your home and she will not ask you. She will not beg you for permission to eat your children. She will scoop up them naughty little kids, put them in her sack, take them back to her cave, and eat them for dinner. And not just one dinner, dinner for the rest of the year, because that's how many naughty kids there are. She turns them into stew. And for Gryla, this is a sustainable model because, according to legend, they never run out of naughty children. That is a wellspring of sustainable food source. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, she manages to make all these naughty children last the entire year. So she comes back around and snatches up a new batch. And it never thins out the herd. She's also been married 3 times, so, like, go off, ogress, because I haven't been married 3 times, but she pulls them in, and her current husband is Lepaludi, and he just hangs out in their cave all day. He's known for being a very lazy ogre, literally, like, does no work. So Gryla is also, like, not only doing all the catching and the cooking, but all the work in this relationship, which I think, like, girl, you could do better than that. You don't have to settle for that kind of guy. But it is suspected that the reason she has 3 husbands is because she ate the first 2. We don't really know why, but I feel like they were getting on her nerves, and maybe she's been with Lepaludi for so long. She's like, this guy does nothing and doesn't bother me. He stays out of my business, so he can stay. Like, I think maybe that's the conclusion she came to. So maybe she's okay with that situation. They also have a gigantic pet cat. So in addition to being a very cool, very girl boss coded, hard-working breadwinner or child snatcher, whatever you want to call it, Gryla is also a cat lady. And she doesn't just have like a regular cat. She has the Yule cat. And the Yule cat is a gigantic cat, said to be the size of a barn. So bigger than Gryla herself as an ogress. She has a cat bigger than her, bigger than most people's houses. And this cat also has a taste for children, but not just any children. This cat's a little bit more particular on its criteria for eating children, and sometimes, according to the stories, just people too. Like, not just kids can be victims of the Yule cat. Because the Yule cat only likes to eat people who didn't receive new clothes on Christmas Eve, so that they could wear them on Christmas. I'm going to let that just sink in for a second. The cat will not eat you if you get new clothes for the Christmas holiday. But if you don't get new fucking clothes, that cat's going to hunt you down and eat you. Now, you might be like, why? Why would that be the criteria for a monstrous, gigantic cat? Well, a lot of sources indicate, or people suspect and believe, that this story of the Yule cat actually started by like the textile people wanting their people to finish their weaving and their wool work and stuff on time for the holiday season. So they were basically like, if you don't finish this on time, the Yule cat will come and eat everybody who doesn't receive new clothes because you didn't do your job. So capitalism, creating another horror story that lives on to this day. Not my favorite version of this, but since it's a giant cat, I'm going to let it slide. I think that's fantastic. I love the Yule cat. So on top of being a badass girl boss who has a stable husband that she knows is always at home, being very well fed and taking care of herself very well, and her giant cat, she also has 13 sons. 13 sons. Now, these 13 sons are known as the Yule lads, and they're very interesting because your brain might be telling you, Yule lads, they're little boys. They're not. They're grown-ass, little tiny dwarven men. Put that in your brain. They're little tiny dwarven men, and I mean, like, garden gnome, like, dwarf type men. So the pointy hats, the whole jaunty figure, everything like that. So they're 13 Yule lads. And their whole vibe is in the 13 days leading up to Yule or Christmas, depending on the tradition. They harass the life out of you. Every day you get visited by a different Yule lad, and they have a different prank that they pull on you, or a different bit of like little mischief that they pull on you leading up to Christmas. But in addition to that, if your kids put out a little wooden shoe, like on the windowsill, they will drop a gift in there. But if your kids are little shits, they'll drop a rotten potato in there instead. So they're kind of like little tiny Santa Claus men who harass you, but also leave you a gift after harassing you a little bit. So they're just having a good time. There used to be like 20-ish recognized Yule lads. They sort of whittled those numbers down over time. Some of them got really crazy and really weird, but I'm going to go over the ones that are currently recognized as opposed to like all the other ones, because it varies a lot and they're kind of all over the place. It isn't also, I guess, important to note that previously, like in the olden days, the Yule lads didn't give you gifts and they weren't cute and fun to have around. They were kind of a nuisance at the best of times and tiny little horrors at the worst of time. But over time, they've sort of changed and become like happy, jolly gift givers who also kind of play pranks and do weird things in your house. And then they, would sometimes appear just one day a piece and be like, here, I'm here, and then I'm out. But in other traditions, they would show up on their day and then stay for 12 days. So at one point, you have 13 little, like, ghostly spirit, like, gnome dudes running around your house, all causing havoc at the same time. And then they would dissipate. So, like, they would run from, like, the 12 days before Christmas to Epiphany. And that's a high stressor. I like to believe only one of them shows up at a time, because I can't even imagine how you would manage or mitigate all of that chaos with 13 people in your house doing crazy things. Just try to imagine 13 adult people in your house doing crazy things. You can't manage that. You can't do it. So I don't think that's possible. But it is a version of the story. So, we'll start with the first one. And again, I'm not going to say their traditional Icelandic name because I can't. I literally can't. But the first one is Sheepcoat Claude. And what he does is harass your sheep. But he has peg legs, so it makes it very difficult for him to harass your sheep. But he does it despite his disability. So I love that for him. It's a hobby. And then you have Gullygawk, who hides in gullies and waits for, like, the perfect moment to sneak into your little barn and steal the milk. So, annoying, but, like, not a tragedy. And then there's Stubby, who is the shortest of them all. And, what he does is he goes to look for your pans to steal them so that he can eat the food that's caked to them. So if you got any pots or pans, like, make sure you wash those when Stubby's around, because he's going to steal your pans just to eat all the baked, crusted on bits out of it. Which, I mean, isn't the worst thing if he returns your pans. There's nothing in the literature that says he returns your pans. So you probably also lose your pans. Then there's Spoonlicker, who steals your spoons so that he can lick them. He's also said to be the thinnest of the lot, because you don't get a lot from spoons. But that's what he does. And then there's Pot Scraper, who also steals your pans to eat the leftovers. Are you sensing a theme? I'm sensing a theme. Clean your dishes. Otherwise, these guys are going to steal all the shit in your kitchen. And then, after Pot Scraper, guess what we have? Bowl Licker. Except, Bowl Licker doesn't just steal the bowls in your kitchen. He hides underneath your bed and waits for the opportune moment to sneak out and steal wooden bowls of food that you put on the floor. Why are they on the floor? I don't know. But that's what he does. And then there is Door Slammer. And now here's where we get to the insidious part, because all the rest before, I'm like, oh, shucks, guys, what weird little habits you have. But now we have Door Slammer. And this guy just walks around your house all night, slamming your doors. And my first thought would be, I have a poltergeist. Not, I have a little dude who's like just slamming doors for the fun of it. But that's what he does, and that's the least pleasant thing to me. And then up next, we have Skyr Gobbler. And Skyr is a type of yogurt in Iceland. So what he does is eat your fucking yogurt. He just snatches up all the yogurt. You probably have like curdling, doing the yogurt thing. What's it called? When they have all the probiotics in it and they let it ferment or do something weird. I don't know how that process works for yogurt making, but he does it while it's processing. He just steals that shit. So you don't have any yogurt even though you worked really hard to make it. That's rude. And then you got Sausage Swiper. Guess what Sausage Swiper does? That's right. He swipes your sausages in the middle of them being smoked. So you're trying to preserve meat for the cold months. He eats it. Also rude. These are ruder to me than like stealing my pots and pans to eat all the crud stuck on the bottom of them. Those ones I can let go. These ones are just straight up. That's harassment. And then you have Window Peeper, which makes me uncomfortable. But he's not just peeping to like watch you undress. He's not a perv. He's peeping so that he can look into your house and find shit to steal. So he is running a racket. So the rest of these guys are like gobbling up all your goods, gobbling up all your trash. He's like, I'm going to break into that place. I'm going to look in through the window. I'm going to break into that place. I'm going to eat everything. And if I can't eat it, I'm going to take it home. So that's what Window Peeper does. And then we have Doorway Sniffer. And Doorway Sniffer has the biggest schnoz of them all. And what he does is he sticks his nose into the door frames and underneath the cracks of doors to sniff around until he finds the room where you're keeping leaf bread. And leaf bread is also a regional specific type of bread for Iceland. I don't know what it looks like. I can't describe it here. I didn't look it up before I started this. I'm sorry. Please Google. Or if you've had it, let me know what it is, because I'm not going to look for it after this. This one is interesting to me, though, Door Sniffer, because I can't even imagine how horrifying it would be to listen at night to someone sniffing at your door frame. That would bother me because I don't have dogs. Upsetting. But also, I feel like the leaf bread would be in the kitchen, and you don't actually have to sniff it out. You just gotta go to the kitchen. But that's his vibe. That's what he does. And then we have Meat Hook, which is giving urban legend, but he just uses the hook to take the meat. So whatever sausage, like, swiper doesn't swipe, he comes around his meat hook and snatches it up. So the rest of your meat is also gone. And then the very last thing, the very last Yule lad that comes to visit you is Candlebeggar. And what he does is he follows the children back to their homes to steal their candles. Because in these days, candles were made with tallow. And tallow is edible. So he doesn't just steal your candles so that you don't have any light. He steals your candles to freaking eat them. These guys are weirdly food motivated. And it makes me feel like maybe Gryla isn't dishing out extra helpings of children's stew. Because they just come to your house and steal all your shit to eat it. And that's the last one. And unfortunately, if you're going by like the shows up for one day and then stays like 12 more days before leaving, he would show up on Christmas Eve. So you'd have no freaking candles for Christmas. And then you would have no candles all the way through Epiphany when you're supposed to have candles. So January 6th comes around, he finally leaves, you have no candles still. So you can't celebrate anything. No feast, no Christmas, no candles. Rudeness. So, that is the tale of Gryla, the Yule cat, the Yule lads, Lepaludi's lazy ass. That's all of them, like, wrapped up nightly. So, it's believed to be that the Yule lads are the sons of Gryla and Lepaludi, although some sources say that they might be the children of her other husbands that also got eaten up. So maybe like they weren't helping out the childcare, so she gobbled them up. I don't know. Maybe Lepaludi's a really good dad, and that's why she keeps him around. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like, I feel like she could do a little bit better, but you know, to each their own. On top of that, like I said, there are other tales that have way more like Yule lads, but they all kind of fall into the same basic groups of like steals your shit, steals your food, creeps you out. We're not going to go into all of them. Interestingly though, in some versions of the story, the Yule lads are Gryla's brothers, not her sons. And in other versions, Um, they don't come from the mountains like Gryla does, like from her cave up in the mountain. They actually come from the ocean, and I don't know why, and I can't find anything that would like explain that. But I also found that there is a very rare, like a single one solo nursery rhyme that describes two Yule ladies. And their whole thing was to steal melted fat by stuffing it up their nose or into their socks. I don't know why, but that's a thing they did. So, yeah, there might be some Yule ladies. They might be taking the fat from your home and stuffing it up their nose and pouring it into their socks for funsies, but I guess they didn't eat it. Or maybe they'll do it later. I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting little tidbit of information. But that is all I have to tell you about Gryla and the Yule Lads. If you stay to the end of the video, as always, I appreciate your faces. And I'll catch you guys all in the next one. If you have a request for a storycraft you would like to hear this year, or if I missed your request from last year and you would still like to hear it, thank you for hanging out. But also leave it in the comments below because, like I said, we're just going to launch into a bunch of new stories once February starts, and I always am accepting requests for Storycraft because I want to tell you guys the stories you want to hear. But that's going to be it for me today, you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, happy crafting. Bye!